Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. This is your host Amit, and I am the Director of Marketing at Microexcel. Microexcel is the leading technology services and solutions partner for global customers. Shortly, we will begin our webinar on Microsoft SharePoint 2019. Today's webinar will be presented by Mahesh Kommanuru, and he will help us all stay updated on newly added features and also with what to look for in hybrid model. Before we start, just a little housekeeping. If you have questions during the presentation, please type those in the questions box in the GoToWebinar control panel. I will bring them up towards the end of the presentation. And also we will have time for question and answers towards the end of the webinar. Just so that all of you know, we are recording today's webinar and this will be made available to all the attendees. Now, without further ado, we'll turn the time over to Mahesh, our presenter, and he brings in deep expertise in content management solution, especially with regards to the Microsoft technologies. He has been working in this domain for over 15 years, and his area of expertise lies in architecting and designing content management solution. He has also had the privilege of delivering enterprise solutions using Office 365, Azure Platform as a Service, and SharePoint to mid and large enterprise. So with that short introduction, I'll turn the mic to Mahesh.
Thanks, Amit. Thanks everyone for joining in for today's webinar. My name is Mahesh Kommanuru. I'm a senior architect here with Microexcel within the Microsoft practice. I've been working on SharePoint and Office 365 for the last 10 plus years. I've been working with clients from small scale to large scale enterprise, facilitating their SharePoint adoption, migrations, and change management. Okay. Before we jump onto the webinar today, I would like to take 5 minutes of your time. If all the attendees can help us with a brief poll, that will help me immensely to tailor this conversation and the webinar accordingly. Amit is going to start the poll shortly. Please take a minute. It won't take much time. Just 3 to 4 questions. We want to get an understanding about your SharePoint experience and what kind of a SharePoint environment that you might be, using at your organizations.
Thank you, Mahesh.
Yeah.
With that, here is our first question. When was the last time your organization executed a SharePoint migration? You can select the answer which is more appropriate for your organization. Okay, so we have started collecting responses, and if I see close to 45% of respondees have said that last year was the time when they had executed the migration. 25% says 3 years ago, and we have 19% saying 2 years back, and 11% saying 3+ years ago. All right, so let's move to the next question. And next poll question is here for all of us to respond to. Do you use any of the below process automation tools? And the options are Nintex, Power Apps, Microsoft Flow, K2. Last one is none of the above.
Hi all. Looks like Amit's connection has is not able to connect. So uh, yes, we had the third question, and how much content did you share? Did your SharePoint farm accumulated? So we had poll results. So 100% of the people said less than 1 TB. So Mahesh, over to you from here.
Thanks, Rakesh. You can close the poll. Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for participating in the poll, folks. It just helps us to, understand or gauge the kind of experience your organization might have went through the SharePoint adoption. Okay. Moving on to the presentation. Okay. So I'll kick off with some basics about SharePoint 2019, right? What are the key features that Microsoft rolled out as part of the SharePoint 2019? Most of you might be familiar with these features, especially those organizations, who are using or who already experience SharePoint online sites on the Office 365. Okay. Uh, the goal of Microsoft was to, to provide a consistent user experience, irrespective of whether the organization is using SharePoint on Office 365 or on SharePoint on-prem. So with that goal, SharePoint 2019 offers a completely redesigned SharePoint on-prem sites, pretty much similar to your modern user experience that was there on SharePoint Online. Okay, it comes with the modern team site, modern communication site, which are ready for responsive UI, irrespective of whether it's a tablet, phone, laptop, or desktop. The modern SharePoint sites are built in for responsive UI, and the same experience is now available on SharePoint 2019, right? Okay. So some of the UX improvements with respect to that are the modern sites, pages, lists, and libraries. Not just the sites, uh, the corresponding lists and libraries, which are part of this modern UX experience, are now available on SharePoint on-prem. Okay. The second important feature is the faster site creation. So in the past, whenever a SharePoint admin has to create a site collection, it used to take close to a minute or more, depending on your infrastructure. Now with the modern site templates, the site creation process is much more smoother. So if it is properly configured, your end users within the SharePoint 2019 can make use of creating a modern sites. Okay. The creating option is enabled through the SharePoint homepage. When you call SharePoint homepage, that's the third key feature. It was already available in SharePoint Online, powered by Office 365 Delve. Okay, it's kind of a dashboard or a landing page for the users where they can go to the SharePoint page and look at all the sites that they're following, or some of those popular sites that's being used by your colleagues within the company, or some of those promoted links or promoted sites by your admin. So this feature was available in SharePoint Online, and it was heavily used by many of the organizations. This became a default page where people were saving their I mean, it was replacing the favorite links or my links part, right? In the past, in the SharePoint on-prem intranet, most of the intranets used to have a space or a web part called my links, used dedicatedly to provide those quick links for different SharePoint sites or any content outside of SharePoint. Now the SharePoint homepage acts as that, but with the backing of uh, intelligence built into it, coming from if it's on-prem, it's coming from the SharePoint search. If you're using that on the Office 365, that intelligence was coming or powered by the Office 365 Delve. Okay. Communication sites which are part of that modern sites package provide a lot of benefits for quickly creating those modern fancy intranet or HR communication portal. Okay, it comes up with a few templates within it or layouts within it, like a layout based for topics or a layout based for showcasing a project or a product. So the communication sites give that additional features for the power users to quickly create those fancy site and broadcast, whether it's a topic or whether a product launch, quickly broadcast that information to your company audience. The next important and the most important feature, in my opinion, is the OneDrive sync client. Till SharePoint 2016 on-prem, right? Syncing a SharePoint library for your offline purpose, or to have that quick access of documents from your various office applications like Outlook and everything, was done using a sync client called Groove, which is kind of outdated and it has a lot of limitations. SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business has been using the next generation sync client for the last few years already, and the results have been outstanding. People most of the limitations that you might have seen with the Groove are overcome. Many special characters are supported, and it also provides you the offline experience of viewing all the files, but downloading only those files on demand basis, like only those files that you might have interacted with, instead of downloading all the, say for a library has 1,000 files and you might not need all the 1,000 files. The modern OneDrive sync client those shows all those 1,000 files. It only downloads those files that you might have interacted with. Okay, so we'll get into the demo briefly in the next few slides. Another important feature is the simplified sharing. Okay, again, Microsoft's goal has been to ensure that the user experience that people or some organizations might have on SharePoint Online Office 365, that user experience has to be consistent irrespective of the platform, whether it's on-prem SharePoint or online SharePoint. So when I tell about the simplified sharing, this is an experience that most of the clients are already being used across SharePoint Online. So you have a simple link called share, and then you can type in the user from your organization. The user pops up. You select them, assign the kind of access you want to give that to. It could be at any level. It could be at a library level, list level, site level, or at a document level. Okay. Also at the same time generating that unique access tied up access links, so that people who has this link can directly open the document. Okay. The next one is the app launcher. So the SharePoint on-prem is getting that app launcher, which is a kind of a waffle menu towards the left top corner of your SharePoint site, which again is there in SharePoint Online. Now it's available in SharePoint 2019. Okay. So these are some of the UX improvements. Again, the goal of these UX improvements is to build or bridge that gap between SharePoint on-prem versions and what was already available with SharePoint Online. Okay. Some of the additional improvements in addition to the UX was with respect to supporting SharePoint on-prem products for a longer life cycle. So there will be future SharePoint on-prem versions, and Microsoft is expecting that it's not going to be a standalone SharePoint on-prem for long, right? Most of the clients, most of the organizations are using SharePoint Online, if not SharePoint Online, Office 365 to a certain extent, and providing a hybrid operations between an on-prem SharePoint and SharePoint Online will open up a lot of scenarios and a lot of additional functions for the organizations. So there is some improved hybrid support for people who use SharePoint 2016 and use this hybrid scenarios. There was a wizard which helps in automating the hybrid configuration, whether it's a cloud search service application, or whether you're configuring OneDrive, My Sites. So we are going to see an improved hybrid wizard. Time permits, I will walk you through the wizard. What are the different features that we have available in that wizard? You will see now it is much more seamless. We don't need to fiddle with any more PowerShell scripts to enable certain use cases for the hybrid. Then another key feature, especially for the developers, is the support for SharePoint framework. SharePoint framework has been the go-to framework for doing any development activities on SharePoint Online for the last couple of years. Okay, In SharePoint 2016 on-prem, SharePoint 2013 on-prem, we used to ask our developers to start coding in terms of apps, right? We used to have a SharePoint hosted app or a provider hosted app. Okay, those apps are still supported, but SharePoint framework provides a much more cleaner integration with modern sites, especially with the React elements. SharePoint frameworks use heavily, TypeScripting and React elements. So to keep consistent UX experience for the users, we recommend highly to use SPAFX as your go-to platform to develop any web parts, any features, any customizations to your sites. Okay. In addition to that, SharePoint framework has proved to be a very robust and scalable solutions. And GitHub has a lot of community provided solutions like PNP and few other solutions that are available in GitHub, which makes easy for a developer who just starts learning SPFX, or to make use of those libraries or those SPFX solutions to easily build exist to your intranets and modernize on top of that. Okay. The other important key feature is the improved support for business process with Power Apps and Flow. We all know that InfoPath form is going off, right? We are pretty close to that deadline. In 2016, people used to already came out of InfoPath. They used to do a lot of custom development for on-prem. If you were on SharePoint Online, Power Apps and Flow was providing a perfect alternative to InfoPath. Coming to SharePoint 2019, a key factor, right? Power Apps and Flow are not built into SharePoint 2019. Okay, these are still a cloud-based solutions, but what you get is a proper way of configuring the gateways. There's something called gateways available with Power Apps and Flow with respective plans. So people who are familiar with the Power Apps licensing, there is a P1, P2 plan, and you need to pick up the right plan. The right plan provides you the option of configuring gateways. Gateways are kind of a bridge between your Office 365 cloud solutions and on-prem SharePoint or SQL or any of the Microsoft on-prem solutions. Okay, so there's an improved support for providing a seamless integration with these gateways. Once that is configured, you can use your Power Apps and Flow from Office 365 to interact with the data that's residing on your on-prem 2019 and execute the business process on Power Apps and Flow on the cloud. So it's a kind of a hybrid solution. But we did implement this for a couple of clients, and the interaction is awesome. Power Apps comes up with a built-in app development, and the apps are compatible with across the devices. Okay. The last one is much more a fancy function as of now. It's called a mixed reality. The Microsoft Mixed Reality started supporting SharePoint, and this function is called SharePoint Spaces. Right now, this is only on invitation or selective basis. Not everyone can access SharePoint Spaces, but there is a link promoted by Microsoft. Any organization who is willing to try out this feature can subscribe to that feature. And again, it is nothing to do with SharePoint 2019 alone, but it's more of a SharePoint fancy feature. So these are some of the key features with respect to the UI improvements and overall hybrid support that's been bundled with SharePoint 2019. So on the next slides, we'll discuss a little deeper details about various features that's available in SharePoint 2019. We'll start with the UX enhancements. I will walk you through these features, and then I will jump onto a quick demo. I have a SharePoint 2019 site built for this webinar. I'll pick up some couple of sites, walk you through the process, and explain each of these improvements. First and foremost, SharePoint Home. Okay, for people who are familiar with Office 365, this is the same SharePoint page that you get from the baffle menu, powered by Office 365 Dell. The functionality that this feature, the SharePoint Home, provides is, you can follow SharePoint sites. It also provides you some suggestions, like what are the various popular sites that being used by your colleagues. And then there are something called featured links. Featured links is something your governance admin or your in HR or communication, whoever owns the SharePoint, they can promote certain links. Could be SharePoint links, could be something, HR related or your business process related. Okay. The next one is modern team and communication sites. If it's configured, if your governance allows, we can SharePoint 2019 provides the feature for end user to create their own sites. Okay, and these sites gonna use the modern site templates. There are a couple of templates. One is called modern team sites and modern communication site. The communication site has few more layouts within it. We will jump into that in a minute. The next one is list and libraries. So the big improvements for the list and libraries for on-prem is, first thing, the maximum file size limit is increased to 15 gigabytes. So you can start uploading all those CAD files or any, learning tutorials into SharePoint if you want to organize all those files in SharePoint. But be cautious, large files, 15 gigabyte files are supported in SharePoint 2019, but it requires a proper architecture, proper SharePoint topology to support, these files and, provide a better performance around that. So I'm not getting into those details, but there's remote blobs that needs to be considered. How many the content DB size and all that. So as a limit, it is increased to till 15 gigabytes. So that's a huge improvement. The next thing is the 400 character on the file path. So in the past, the file path is 256 characters limit, right? And the file path, constitutes of your site name, subsite name, library, folders, and number of, levels of folders you would have created. So beyond that, even though you can create and upload the file, but if you want to, access that file to perform any of the operations, we used to have these limitations with 256 characters. Now it is extended to 400 max character. It could be a root site collection with a library with a file with 400 character, 250 characters in it. I mean, combined together, it's going to be 400 characters. Or it could be in different levels of subfolders. Okay, and it also supports a couple of new special characters. Percentile and hash tags are now supported to be in your file name. Okay, these are the two new improvements for list and libraries. Fast site creation. Okay, this applies only to the modern site templates. Okay, if you are using classic sites, SharePoint 2019 support both. Okay, if you have that cushion, classic sites are not obsolete; they are totally supported. You can still continue creating your publishing sites, enterprise sites, or classic collaboration sites like team sites and everything. Those are still supported, but the fast site creation will not be applicable to that. It only applies to the modern sites, whether it's going to be the modern OneDrive personal site, team site, or communication site. We tested across different environments, different infrastructure. It's totally ties up with your infrastructure. If you provide the best infrastructure, it creates in less than a couple of seconds. Okay, it's that fast. User-friendly pages, web parts, and authoring. We'll jump onto that. I'll show you a couple of examples. When they say user-friendly pages, right? With the modern sites, these entire pages are mostly React-driven, and they're very responsive. Not in terms of just a kind of a browser, the kind of a tablet or mobile device you're using. In terms of adding content or in terms of adding web parts, editing this content, everything is so fluid. Okay, the entire pages are built on virtual DOM. I'll show you an example on how user-friendly and how fluid the experience is in editing these pages with the modern site templates. Okay, the next one is the suite navigation and app launcher. Again, the goal is to provide that consistent experience for companies who are using both Office 365 and SharePoint on-prem. So if you're looking at the image here, the left top is what we call as an app launcher, which was already there with Office 365. People are very familiar with that. We call this as a waffle menu. This is available in SharePoint 2019 too. Simplified sharing experience. As I said, The sharing experience is something you're going to see here on the top right in the image. I'm going to demo that. It's pretty friendly for power users or end users to contribute for sharing the files for different users. One thing to keep in mind for people who experience this feature with Office 365, right? SharePoint Online in Office 365 by default supports external collaboration, whereas an on-prem doesn't support that. Okay, so there will be some difference in that sharing experience. On a SharePoint 2019 on-prem, as long as you're sharing this with the internal users, if it's an intranet configured, you'll have a seamless, sharing experience. For extranet, the sharing experience won't be the same. With that said, let's move on to the next one. Okay, there are some improvements for the administration and for the infrastructure side of it, right? This is mostly for the SharePoint admin or the infrastructure architects who are responsible in building up that SharePoint forms. First and foremost is the SMTP authentication for sending emails. In SharePoint 2016 and previous models, if your organization was asking for, this comes in during configuring the outgoing emails. While configuring the outgoing emails, few clients it's straightforward. They give you the SMTP address, or the IP address, you type in and define, what is your, SharePoint from address would be, and it would be straightforward. Whereas few clients, want to keep it secure, and they want to do an authentication for any of these outgoing emails. For that, we used to configure a SMTP relay. We used to build up a new SMTP relay mission, and then handle the configuration on that. But going forward from SharePoint 2019, you don't need to set up a SMTP relay for that. If your organization says that all your outgoing emails has to be authenticated, that authentication information could be directly entered in the SharePoint Central Admin. I'll show you that when I get to the demo. Workflow Manager 2019. So this version will replace the Workflow Manager 1.0 that we used to use with 2016 and 2013. Okay. So in terms of architecture, it will be the same. So you need to spin up your own Workflow Manager VMs, deploy this Workflow Manager 2019 on that, and rest everything subscribing to this Workflow Manager. The steps is similar to what you are experienced to in 2016 and 2013. The last one is integration with Power Apps and Flow. As I mentioned previously, there are no real Power Apps and Flow within the on-prem. The Power Apps and Flow is still powered from the Office 365, but with the proper configuration, the gateways, you have a smoother experience interacting with the content coming from SharePoint 2019. Okay, let's jump onto demo. I'm going to pull up the site. We'll have a couple of demos here in between the webinar. So this one, I'll focus on the UX improvements. Okay. So I'll start with the SharePoint homepage. Okay, this is my on-prem SharePoint 2019. You can see this is a SharePoint page, and the SharePoint page link is available through the WAFL menu. So this is the app launcher that is consistent from Office 365 user experience. So from the app launcher, you can access your OneDrive. This is the OneDrive which is replacing the My Sites. It's been the same naming convention from 2016. And then now you will have a new link called SharePoint. When you click on SharePoint, it's going to bring you to this SharePoint dashboard page. Okay. So for those who are familiar with a SharePoint Online experience, I'll quickly show you how it used to be in SharePoint Online. This is how the SharePoint page appears on SharePoint Online. Okay, you get those frequent sites and the sites that you're following, followed by those recent sites that you interacted, and the featured links. Featured links is something your governance admin or your respective SharePoint admins will populate certain links that is available for you. So if we compare that with the SharePoint on-prem, so this is the SharePoint on-prem. SharePoint page, you get a pretty similar experience. Okay, you get a feature links. The recent sites will start populating as I keep accessing more sites. On a SharePoint on-prem, this is powered based on the search and the activity feed. Okay, there's no Delve integration with SharePoint 2019, so it's powered using your SharePoint 2019 search and My Sites. So you have to configure the My Sites on the OneDrive for OneDrive on the SharePoint 2019. Only then the SharePoint dashboard will start populating the sites that you're following and the frequent sites that are visited by you, and those popular sites, which would be again those intelligence built in, like it will keep looking at how your colleagues are interacting with the different SharePoint sites, and based on that activity, you'll see some suggestions here. Okay, and the other feature is create site, right? As I said, we configured for this webinar that we're going to let our end users create their own sites as and when need arises. Again, this is a big governance question, right? Few organizations are not open to this. Few organizations are fine with this. Depending on what your governance decides, you can configure this. But to demo this experience, when you click on the create site, let me pull up I found some bug with respect to this on one of the versions of the Chrome. So you can see the same experience on IE, but not on Chrome. So I'm going to go to SharePoint here. Okay. So if I want to create a site, I'm going to click this option. Okay. You're going to see these two options, right? Team site and communication site. Both of them are modern site templates. Team site, it would be straightforward. It's a modern collaboration site meant for enabling that collaboration between teams, or could be cross-functional project sites. Okay, I'm gonna go back and I'll show you the options for communication site. For communication site, you have three designs available. It's a topic. Okay, topic is mostly like an article driven, and it could be topic in terms of a news article, announcements, however you treat a topic could be. So you get respective designs on how to present those topics. You get a nice hero web part. You get a nice bunch of modern news web parts with various layouts within it. I'll show you those examples where there's a built-in slide web part too. Again, people who are used to SharePoint Online, this is already available there. So topic, showcase. Showcase is meant for broadcasting any new product launch within your company, or could be new policy, or something that you want to highlight, maybe a town hall meeting. So whichever you want to broadcast as a showcase, you're going to use this design. And finally, you have a blank that lets your admins to tailor this to your specific needs. So these are the options of creating a team site and communication site, and the site creation process is, as I said, pretty fast in this. Okay, I'm going to jump back into the server that is from my desktop. So I'll show you an example of both these templates. So this is a modern team site. Okay, a modern team site comes up with a basic collaboration, keeping collaboration as an objective. Okay, you get a quick launch on the left side. That you can configure quickly. Add any of those links. Okay, and you get this modern site experience with a basic news web part in it. If you edit this, that might not be the admin on this, and compare that to this account payables is a sample modern team site I created. Let me pick up a communication site. Okay, I'm going to switch to my admin account. Looks like I didn't grant myself sufficient permissions to edit that page. I'm going to add a page here. I'll show you all these options on the modern team site first, then we'll move on to a modern communication site. Okay. So you can see the experience of creating a modern page or editing a modern page. The entire UI is with respect to the modern UI totally uses SharePoint framework and React components. If you want to add a web part, just add a web part. You'll see a bunch of modern web parts that are compatible with the modern pages. So there is also this option of using classic site and enabling the modern pages in the classic site. Okay, in that case, you can have a classic intranet and just couple of pages for modern experience. And these web parts are these modern web parts will be available only for the modern pages. Okay, so any custom web part that you might have developed for a classic site will not render appropriately. So we try to guide our clients or educate people that stick to whether modern sites or classic sites depending upon your need, at least at the site collection level. Okay, and then your custom solutions should be developed accordingly. If you have any classic intranet in SharePoint 2013 or 2016, and if your goal is to migrate to SharePoint 2019, you should start asking this first question: am I going to use modern site experience in 2019? If so, what should I be doing with my solutions, my custom solutions? All those custom solutions has to be modernized, has to be rewritten into SharePoint framework. Okay, so these are a bunch of web parts that are available out of box. Okay, there is an hero web part, which is a bunch of images arranged in a layout here. You can change that, edit this web part, like if you want to have 5 tiles or 4 tiles, 2 tiles, 3 tiles. Okay, that's kind of a built-in web part. Most people use it for the home page. And if you look at the page is for people who is familiar with 2013 or 2016, right? You are normally having a classic page tied up to your layouts, right? You have web part zones. You no longer see those zones, but what you see here is sections. The modern pages are treated through sections. Okay, I have 2 sections here. If I want to add more section, I can add a section here, and the section has these 5 layouts: 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns, so and so. I can choose a 3-column section, and that's how it's going to be. Under each section and under each of this column, I can add a number of web parts. Okay, and if you want to change this section layout, you can do it anytime. Edit section, you can go back to 2 column. Okay, and you can see the experience, right? As I keep changing this layout or adding web parts, you will not see a lag or refresh in the page. The experience is totally fluid. So you're done. If you want to add a web part, you can just go click that and pick up a web part. I want to add a news web part here. The news web part is added there. And if I want to add a image web part there, and I can add an image web part there. Configure and pick up respective images from there. Let's see why the screen is okay. Another thing is you're asked to enter the page title right here. Test and close. So as you can see, the experience of creating modern pages and adding these web parts is pretty seamless. Okay, that's with respect to the modern site. Okay, the other thing is the sharing experience, right? If you want to share a site, you're going to directly click on the share from here. Okay, so you're going to get the sharing experience where you can type people's name. You no longer need to go to kind of a people picker. It's all modern people picker components. You get the show options to select the permissions. Okay. Click share. Okay. Now I'll quickly jump onto the central admin. I'll show you the couple of features that I highlighted for the admins, right? First thing was outgoing email settings. So for people who are with admin background, creating the SharePoint 2019 form is similar to SharePoint 2016. We still have those min role topology. Nothing changed in that. SharePoint 2016 Service Pack 1 had some improvements to the min role topology. Those improvements are carried forward. So configuring outgoing email settings. This is where that SMTP authentication that I mentioned. So you get the SMTP server authentication directly from here. Okay. If you are using an authenticated, you can use that username and password directly here. In the past, we used to set up a SMTP relay just to handle this authentication. Now it's built into the SharePoint Central Admin, so one less headache or task for the admins. And there is this configuration wizards. No, sorry, not this one. The Office 365 one. From this Office 365, you can launch the hybrid configuration wizard. Okay. So it's pretty straightforward. For the first time you click, it's going to download an exe, and it will look for some prerequisites on it. And I'm going to quickly walk you through this wizard. I'm not going to configure anything hybrid, but you can see how easy it is to configure hybrid using this wizard. Okay. So I'm going to click next. It's going to run a bunch of pre-checks. Before that, it's going to ask for my credentials. I'm going to use my survey, my admin account here, and this is to my O365, right? I should. The whole point of this hybrid is connecting to O365. I have a demo tenant that I created on SharePoint Online. I'm going to use that. Again, we will not be doing any hybrid configuration. Much more, we'll just verify the features available in this wizard. Okay, so the connections are successful. Still trying to validate. Perfect. Close. When I go next, it's going to check for those prerequisites. Some of the prerequisites are, even though if you didn't complete them, will be listed out here. But as you can see, these are all the prerequisites. You need to have the app management service configured. You need to have the user profile service application configured, and it's going to check for some authentication realm change scenarios and all that. Okay, so these are some prerequisites that are must. This need to be configured on your on-prem before you think or plan about hybrid configuration. But when you run the wizard, it will also clearly list out what are the prerequisites that you might be missing. Once this is true, you go to next. It's going to update this authentication realm, which I don't want to do this. I just want to demo and show you guys what are the options with the hybrid configuration. So you get an hybrid OneDrive. Okay, and you can set the My Site creation default to hybrid OneDrive in Office 365. Hybrid sites, hybrid business to business sites, hybrid self-service site creation, app launcher. Like this app launcher, if you use a hybrid, you can say that this app launcher will be fed from Office 365, so that you don't need to worry about maintaining what's there in this app launcher for on-prem and what's different in SharePoint Online. Okay, so these are the different features that's available for you. For each of these, there is some additional input parameters. If I want to do a hybrid search, I need to fill in all this information. Okay. With 2013 and 2016, we used to run a bunch of PowerShell scripts to get this created. Similarly, for the taxonomy and content types, there's additional information that you need to provide. Okay. So once you finish all the prerequisites and have the necessary information for providing this, when you select the necessary features that you want to configure, creating the hybrid topology is pretty seamless. Okay. I'm going to cancel this. I'm not going to run anything. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. Move on to the next slide. So quickly touch base on the deprecated features and removed features. Okay, deprecated features are something no longer supported, but they're still there in SharePoint 2019 to support some of your solutions, so that you can plan for migrating or getting out of those features. Okay, Access Service 2010 and 2013, they are deprecated. Aggregated newsfeed, GRU sync client, InfoPath services, list web service. Again, the InfoPath is everyone knows that they're going. List web services are replaced with modern REST API calls. Machine translations are gone. No more performance point integration. SharePoint Designer, the last version of SharePoint Designer released was 2013. That is still supported, but those work only with the classic sites. The modern sites, you can't edit the pages with SharePoint Designer. The modern site and pages are totally SPFX, controlled. You should be, there are some ways of controlling those layouts using the JSON and everything, but not with SharePoint Designer. There won't be a site mailbox, no site manager, and variations. All these features are deprecated. They are supported for reverse compatibility to a certain extent, but if you're planning migration, consider all this. Are you using site mailbox? Are you heavily dependent with SharePoint Designer? Keep looking at these deprecated features. They might be supported for reverse compatibility, but eventually, this will be removed too. Coming to totally removed features, there are no more sandbox solutions, code-based sandbox solutions. Digest authentication is gone. Incoming email auto mode is gone. There's no multi-tenancy feature. No Power Pivot gallery, and no support to Silverlight based, rendering and Visio. This used to be part of, some of the workflow features. Okay, so these are some deprecated and removed features. Let's discuss briefly about, migration, right? Why do you want to move to migration? Why do you want to migrate to SharePoint 2019? So we've been discussing about all these benefits. What are the new features available? A responsive experience by default to your, intranet, right? In the past, whenever you create an intranet, and if your power users are heavy on, iPads or, Android tablets, you always need to design a master page keeping responsive UI in mind. Whereas in 2019, your intranet, your modern site templates are by default out of box responsive. Okay, and you get a support for OneDrive.exe, the next generation sync client, which is awesome, which is available through your tablets as an app. Similarly, modern internet portals and communication site that we discussed, support for large files, long URLs, reduced character restrictions, and seamless end user experience for hybrid topologies. Some of these we saw in the demo. These are some of the highlights or the benefits you get by migrating to SharePoint 2019. Talking about migration options, the migration strategies, right? If you are in SharePoint 2016, your migration would be a little seamless for classic to classic migration. If you want to adapt to modern sites, then you need to consider about using a migration tool. But if your goal is to just do a lift and shift migration, you can stick to content DB attach and detach process from SP16 to SP19. But if there is a IA changes, if you want to reorg the site, if you want to make use of the modern sites, please use a migration tool. There are pretty good migration tools available in the market that can facilitate that migration. If you are thinking about migrating from SP13 to 19, I mean, there are a couple of ways. If you're gonna use a migration tool, it's going to be straightforward. You don't need to worry about SP16. But if your goal is to migrate, using DB attach for various reasons, maybe a service application with lot of managed properties, okay, then you need to set up a staging SharePoint 16 environment. So you migrate your service applications or any of those content DBs first to 16, okay, attach them, mount them. Once they're properly migrated, take a backup of that, detach them, and follow the steps onto SharePoint 19. Okay, depends. This is a very complex migration, hopping from SharePoint 13 to 16 to 19. So you have to really plan accordingly. Cutover migrations will be a big problem with that, because of the timeline, right? How many DBs you can really detach and attach by going through 16 and 19 on a given timeline. Mostly you try to do this an offline time. So, and if any of the clients using path-based site collections, that would be a nightmare to migrate from SharePoint 13 to SharePoint 19, and especially if you want to retain the same URLs in SP19. So heads up on for clients who are using path-based site collections. Be prepared on how you are planning the downtime and how you're going to reuse those URLs in SP19. Last is the custom migration tools, right? Irrespective of what your current environment is, if you're using migration tools, they're highly beneficial. It will let you reorganize your content. It will provide you the option to migrate from classic to modern sites. Okay. Last but not least is the custom solutions. Okay. If it's a proper server-based WSP in SP16, and if your goal is to use classic sites in SharePoint 2019, those custom WSP should work most of the times. But if your goal is to adapt modern sites, then you need to revisit those WSPs and see how you can redevelop them and modernize them using the SPFX solutions. Okay. The next one is hybrid improvements. We saw this, the new hybrid status bar. So during the configuration window, you can see the status of this hybrid across from Office 365 and also from on-prem. The SharePoint 2019, provides a modern search interface, which makes it seamless for this modern search to work between SharePoint Online and SharePoint on-prem. Okay, and the next one is the OneDrive, which we discussed. I don't think we have enough time to demo on this, but for people who are using SharePoint Online, the OneDrive experience will be the same for SharePoint 2019. You get to do a lot of you get a lot of features compared to the previous client, which was Group. I'm gonna skip this demo. I think we're pretty much done on the timeline. I will open for Q&A. Amit, do you have any questions that I can answer?
Yeah, so as we said earlier, there is question and answer time, and this is the time for people to type in their questions, and I will bring forth those for Mahesh to answer. Okay, Mahesh, our first question is, can we use Power Apps with SharePoint 2019?
So as I was explaining, right, you can use Power Apps with SharePoint 2019, but it requires some prerequisites. The prerequisites are, configuring a gateway. Power Apps are still powered from Office 365. They're still a cloud solution. They're not integrated directly with SharePoint 2019. So if you want to use Power Apps with on-prem 2019, you need to have sufficient license, and then you need to configure the gateways. The gateways will facilitate for the Power Apps to interact with the content coming from your on-prem.
Thank you. The second question that we have received is, are there hub sites on SharePoint 2019?
Good point. So there are no hub sites on SharePoint 2019. Hub sites are still a SharePoint only solution as of now. But if you look at hub sites, right, what does hub site do? It provides a hub navigation, a consistent navigation that you can represent across multiple site collections. which you can do using a SharePoint framework for your on-prem sites. And there is actually a solution already available in GitHub. So you can download that SharePoint framework solution, customize it, and deploy it across multiple site collections so that you get a similar functionality as hub sites on your on-prem too. And similarly, if you want to also enforce that governance of implementing the same themes across all the site collections, there are ways to do that from using SharePoint framework. So right now, there is no default out-of-box hub sites available in on-prem 2019, but there are GitHub solutions which can help you to customize it further to your needs.
Okay, the third one is creation of custom WCF service. Is it still supported with SharePoint 2019?
It's still supported as in like a server-side solution, depending on how you are interacting that data. Or if you mean the native, okay, there are two ways to handle this, okay? If you're using a custom WCF solution as a native WCF solution from .NET framework, you can do that. But if you're asking about creating a state machine workflows, that I think, it's not supported. There's no SharePoint state machine workflows that we used to do in the classic, 2010 and 2013.
Thank you. And the last question that I have is, what is the SharePoint designer version for SharePoint 2019?
So there's no new version of SharePoint Designer. So the last and best version released was SharePoint Designer 2013. You can still use that SharePoint Designer 2013 with SharePoint 2019 sites. It will work for any classic sites that you might create. But if you're using a SharePoint 2019 modern sites, your designer will not be compatible. You can't connect with them.
Okay, I think that's all. We have answered all the questions received so far. If there are any more questions, you can definitely mail those over to us. And thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Mahesh,
we didn't get enough
for the demo and the presentation that we have.
Sorry, Amit.
So we will accept the demo request also. In case people here are interested in knowing more, in going through those demos, you can put in your request. And thank you, everyone. We appreciate your being here. We'll be uploading the webinar recordings, and URL will be shared with you through mail. Before you log off, a quick request: please complete the short 30-second survey to help us improve these knowledge sessions. And thanks once again for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.